Shalom, this is SK speaking. I hope you're all well. I hope that you're having a great weekend. My weekend is going by pretty fast, as it always does. Um, Looking at a couple of the headlines in the news, one regarding an attack that happened in Europe, in the UK. Um, Very, very devastating thing. There's a lot of things surrounding that as well. I'm going to get into some highlights that have been happening, you know, in the news. And a lot of the things I'm going to be talking about are things that people just aren't paying attention to. We're living in such a highly dynamic environment where change no longer comes in generational terms. When maybe like your mother or your father grew up, a generation was supposed to last 30 years. I mean, today you can say maybe every 5 years you have a pretty different environment. What I'm trying to say here is that we are seeing things really take off at an alarming rate. The U.S. has deployed THAAD, better known as the Thermal High Altitude Area Defense in South Korea, aka their defense system, and North Korea has done the same. Their missile programs continue to advance and become more aggressive. And we know that Korea has a interest in going to war with America. Just recently, Kim Jong-un made a statement about this. We're seeing a proliferation of more military drills, um, annual drives taking place like Foil Eagle, accompanied by computer simulated resolve that started actually March 13th. When we add it to the other geopolitical attentions out there about what's going on in North Korea and what the Chinese are doing in South Korea, it's really trending significantly in the wrong direction. Look at it this way. Things cross borders with tremendous speed and tremendous volume. And we simply ask the question, how will the world contend with it? How is the world going to deal with various threats? Um, to either peace between countries or stability within them. So this brings us to a grander agenda. And if you're not familiar with Agenda 2030, I need you to get acquainted with it right now. The elites are saying that especially in the last 40 years, urbanization has been on such an unprecedented scale that scholars are now talking about planetary urbanization or ecological urbanization. So we're talking about open borders and the redistribution of wealth. It's a whole program that they're trying to initiate, working on with not with states or with governments, but with cities. So this means that the very nature, if you will, of the rural is also being urbanized in complex and multifaceted ways. So this is a part of the agenda that the UN knows that if we're going to take control of the world, we're not going to be able to take control of nations, we're not going to be able to take control of states. We have to take control of cities. So we see the pace of urbanization as it is picking up enormously. And just about maybe I'll say 3 weeks ago, they just completed a major meeting of almost all the major cities of the world, gathering together part of putting together this agenda to bring together what they call Habitat 3 in urban agenda and establishing a regimen or regime that would control resources. So, well, basically the idea of controlling and getting people to concentrate on high-rise apartments instead of taking advantage of the beautiful forest lands. The big problem with global governments today is the purposeful desire to create a particular type of world order. It's 1984 for real. If you've ever read that book, or if you haven't, I encourage you to read the book 1984 by George Orwell. You know what? By creating This whole thing, this whole globalization thing, guys, it's really creating a big brother global police state. So there's this sort of liberal order, which is a basic set of principles that rules and norms and standards, and it's based on a principle of openness. Okay, so it's the agreement to live under a certain set of rules that everyone abides by. You know, if you can recall George H.W. Bush during the first Gulf War, he talked about a new world order. He stated, and I quote, "We have before us an opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order. We also have such notable scientists as Stephen Hawking's co-signing, stating that our future depends on some form of world government. He stated that technology has advanced at such a pace that this aggression may destroy us by nuclear or biological war." And I'm sure that he is a expert, right? So interesting enough, we're moving into a time where we're not only creating um, our own outcomes and ends, but we're doing it all by design. you know. So genetic science, this is a topic that's been trending for quite some time. Genetic science has, as many of you have heard, is given us the ability to create what they call designer babies. Believe it or not, there's already been artificial babies created and designed based on a three-dimensional model of a mouse embryo, which was proven to be anatomically correct. So, folks, it's no longer science fiction, it's actually science fact. It's the tools and power coming into our hands, so we're kind of playing creator here. Beyond all this, there's a storm coming, and many are not prepared for it. Um, the top of the government are aware, but it's the people that have no clue. Of course, they keep everything from us. We're having to jigsaw puzzle our way into an understanding. But those that are with the Most High, He gives us discernment, and we're well aware. So we see that Turkey and Russia are two of the most important players on the global stage. The more current trends in violence is it will be a more violent world to come, as we already know, right? And as far for the trend here in America, Trump is still adamant about building a wall at a whopping $4 billion. He's calling on businesses around the country to actually submit their designs. And guess what? So far, 6 million companies have submitted their ideas. But, the corruption really stems from deep within. You know, I believe that a wall will not stop anything when the filth is the ground the wall stands on. You understand what I'm saying? So, there's another secret agenda going on behind the scenes to really just end freedom of speech and take down any information that is deemed irrelevant or unacceptable in their eyes. And it's without disclaimer, without a rhyme or reason. Things are just going to disappear on the internet, and those not abiding by certain rules will be fined at 250, a whopping two. Let me say that again, 250 per day plus attorney's fees. Under this new bill, newspapers, scholarly works, copies of books on Google Books, Amazon, encyclopedias, online encyclopedias will be gone. If a judge and a jury finds that the material is no longer usable for current debate or discourse, it would have to be removed. Can you imagine that? It's happening, folks. And the bill contains no exceptions, even to material of historical interest. The deeper end of this bill is that it censors even what people say. So based on what the government thinks the public should or shouldn't be discussing, the agenda is complete control. It's complete control over what we say, what we think, and what we're doing. And that's not their job. We have to understand that we're living in a very engineered world. not only mentally but physically. Look at these strange weather patterns. There's nothing normal about them. A lot of it is engineered, and now scientists are saying for us to expect hotter and longer heat waves during the summer. And in the next 15 years, and that the extreme conditions, whether hot or cold, we're witnessing are intensifying. We witnessed in Chicago this year when we expected heavy snowfall. There were tornadoes in winter. You know, they didn't have any kind of measurable snow during January or February. This is so odd to me. So odd to me, folks. In the scriptures, it's spoken about a time that would come about where there would be a great travailing. Okay. And like a woman in birth pangs, we know that when a woman is very near to labor, she begins to feel abdominal pains and cramps, much more significantly and much more severe. So we see a reflection of this picture in the book of Matthew in the world today, the age that we now live in. Things seem to be escalating at an enormous rate and a fast pace. And what Yahushua wanted us to understand is that when we came to the times of the end, it wasn't going to be like we couldn't recognize it. Because not only had we been given information about what's coming into the world, but it's going to be pretty obvious. And this is not normal that the world is moving into directions heretofore unseen. Okay? Again, let's recall the changes that have taken place globally: strange weather, geopolitical issues, etc. Did you know even one of Hawaii's mountains has gotten more snow than Denver, Colorado this year? Which leads us to ask the question: is extreme weather patterns the new norm? The Earth is heating up, and it's been a cause for alarm. Uh, 20 years ago, we were talking about the world freezing over, and now we're talking about the world cooking to death. I mean, they're talking about climate change, and they're right. I mean, climate does change: winter, spring, summer, fall. You know what I mean? We have changes in climate and so forth, but it isn't as cataclysmic. And if CO2 is really percolating out there in the atmosphere, we know that some time ago that CO2 was much more higher than it was now. And that climate was much more tropical back then because there was so much heat. And what happens is with much CO2, it makes plants grow. So do you realize that the Arctic thinning of the ice has reversed itself in the last 2 years? We're not hearing about that. It's just things that they just care not to talk about. They want to talk about everything else. The snow level has gone back to where they were, and think about the poor polar bears. We went from 6,000 to 2,500, and I don't know what we're going to do about it. I guess we have to stay out of the. I'm sorry, I said 6,000. 6,000 to 2,500 or 25,000. Okay, so 6,000 to 25,000. So the Earth is reeling. I mean, earthquakes, and while the Earth is shaking, our hearts are doing the same thing. Strange things are happening, and people are feeling the strange shaking, not even related to what we call an earthquake, and hearing strange booming sounds in the air, seeing strange sights, objects flying around in the air. And from all these uncertainties, I believe we're going to see a world that is increasingly antagonistic towards believers. And, we're rapidly seeing a moral decline in the world, and not even in the world, but between the family of believers. The influence of the world, as seen, it seems to have infiltrated those proclaiming to be set apart. We are to witness and prophesy daily. There's been indeed a great and tragic increase of wickedness, and the love of many has definitely waxed cold. Have any of you heard about this story of Austin Haroff? This happened a while back. He was accused of killing a couple and gnawing their faces. You know, he was also interviewed by Dr. Phil. And in an interview of this young man, he stated he was running from a demon like figure named Daniel before the attack, and stated that he had heard voices and the devil talking to him, and that he had superpower delusions. So we're seeing also this increase in demonic activity. And, people in the world don't know how to place this. They don't know how to categorize it. We might say it's a mental illness, but these things are really going on. These things are really happening. The spiritual has a tendency to influence the physical. And I think a lot of this we have to be very vigilant about. Very, very vigilant about. At any rate, everyone, I just pray that we can all just be more watchful. In the scriptures, it says, watch and pray. So we also need to pray that we may be accounted to escape the things that are coming to this earth and that are actually already here. May you find solace in the Most High, in Yahuwah, and may you be careful about your walk and stay on the narrow path. I pray for your safety and the safety of your loved ones and your family members. Shalom.